On behalf of Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, Andhra and Telangana branch, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to today's virtual panel discussion on India, the new frontier for global talent and business growth. Special welcome to Mr. Raghu Babu, founder and director, SimplyBiz Private Limited, Mr. Murali, CTO Ground Game Health, and Mr. Nick Genty, co-founder and CEO AGEYE Technologies. We thank SimplyBiz Private Limited for their support as knowledge partners. Thank you all our members and guests for joining us today. Mr. Raghu Babu ji, I would like to introduce about him. He is a founder and director of SimplyBiz. Raghu has been instrumental in helping business navigate the complexities of financial regulations and compliance in India. With extensive experience in finance and management, he has guided many international firms in successfully establishing their operations in the Indian market. About Mr. Murali T, he is a CTO of Ground Game Health. He has a robust background in healthcare technology and innovation. His expertise in leveraging technology to solve complex healthcare challenges makes him a valuable contributor to discussions on how India's technological advancement can be harnessed by global business. Now about Ms. Nick Genty, co-founder of CEO of AGEYE Technologies. Nick is a seasoned entrepreneur with a deep understanding of artificial intelligence and application agriculture. His work in automating indoor farming with AI solutions has garnered international recognition, making him a leading voice on how technology can drive growth in new markets like India. About Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, it is an apex bilateral chamber who synergizes both India and US economic engagement. IACC, we from Hyderabad, we serve both the states, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. We regularly organize seminars and webinars for our members. We work very closely with state government for policy formulation, advocacy, and representing on policy issues on behalf of Indian and American companies. We also work very closely with US Consulate General Hyderabad on issues relating to visas, trade barriers, and other pertinent matters. We facilitate B2B meetings for our inbound delegations from USA with industry sectors in India. And also, we arrange outbound delegations in USA in coordination with the partners in USA. We identify potential buyers, etc. In fact, we coordinate trade development missions for promotion of bilateral trade. We actively participate trade fairs, exhibitions both in India and USA. IACC work for different industry sector and for different business segments through subcommittees like IACC Women Leader Forum, Young Leaders Forum, etc. We have got 12 offices across India. So all the members in one location can have the same rights and privileges in other cities as well. So with these words, I wish a very productive and fruitful session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now I request Raghu sir to take over.
Yeah, very good evening, friends from India, and good morning to friends from US. And thank you, IACC, for giving this opportunity to partner with you and share some of our knowledge on this subject. I mean, the whole idea of this webinar is to how these global companies, particularly the global SMBs and emerging companies, can take benefit out of Indian talent. So we have, Mr. Nick Genty, who already running a company out of India and US, who has been going through the journey for last 4 or 5 years. Over a period of, next 30 to 40 minutes, we wanted to understand from his journey how India has helped, in overall his strategy in building his business. So I'll just take, little time, maybe a couple of minutes to set the context, and then, we will spend some time with Nick Genty and going through their journey, so that, that insight will help several founders, entrepreneurs, and businesses, from US and other, countries can take advantage of. Let me just share my screen. 1 second. I mean, this is the kind of a context we are in, Indian business newspaper headlines for last couple of years. The kind of talent, India has, and the global multinational companies, Fortune 500 companies, how they are making India as, very, very strategic hub for their talent and the research and development. Traditionally, maybe if one looks at maybe 10, 15, 20 years back, everybody considered India, for the cost arbitrage, the low, cost for acquiring the talent here. But I think, this has, changed significantly last, 10 years, and more importantly, last 5, 6 years, availability of quality talent and coupled with the interconnected world, several, global corporations started setting up a strategic centers here. A huge amount of R&D is happening. Patents are getting filed. It's no more, it's a cost arbitrage. It is the value the Indian talent can bring to the table. That is what is increasingly becoming visible and also experienced by several corporations. This speaks volume, in terms of, several companies coming here. Why India? I mean, I don't think I need to, elaborate. Very, very robust economy, third largest economy in the world. We are growing around 6 to 7%. We have an ambition to become, economic superpower or a developed economy by 2047. The Narendra Modi ji, our Prime Minister, has set a goal to become by 2047 developed economy. I think we have right ingredients, right foundation, right context. I think talent is making this definitely achievable. We are all very, very excited about the journey we are going through in the current context. Some of the new initiatives, which is making India, competitive in various ways. One example I want to share, which I'm very, very, passionate about, digital public infrastructure. Your UPI, Aadhaar, bank accounts, and you have ONDC, which is trying to democratize the, e-commerce. I think some of these initiatives, are going places. The very, very recent initiative of accounts aggregator ecosystem, which, central bank is developing. All these are making very, very attractive place for the, businesses who want to look at the Indian consumer, Indian market is one side, and the Indian talent are the other side. So, that's how the context, the environment is very, very poised for the growth. I think 6 to 7% is given. Can we grow at 10% is what we're all, aiming to achieve or, aspire for it. The another, important dimension what we have is the consumption story, which is happening big time. The aspirations of Indians are growing, and the, the income levels are growing, and that is giving huge, market opportunity for the global companies who want to sell their products and services in India. So one is on market opportunity, second is on the talent opportunity. These are the two things these two are making very, very attractive for anybody, everybody all over the world. Are you, if you are an investor, you are a founder, you are a business, you are a talent, place to go is India. If you don't have a presence in India, looks like, you're out of place. You're not talking about growing your business. That's how, we are trying to look at things. Yeah. This is where we are, in terms of market size, market capitalization. Indian capital markets have achieved 5 trillion economy, market capitalization 5 trillion, which is again third in the world. And we have 114 unicorns, and the FDI inflow is $44 billion in the last financial year. And we have, 2.4 million companies. We are currently GDP at 3.4, growing at a faster pace. And, somebody was asking, generally, the GDP versus your market capitalization should be 1:1, maybe 1:1.1. But today, against the 3.4 trillion GDP, we are 5 trillion economy, 5 trillion market capitalization. Say, unlike several countries, maybe US, large companies are listed entities. But in India, I think maybe listed may constitute maybe 5, 10% or 15%. The large, businesses still are unlisted, privately held. That is not counted. That is coming now. Several, SMEs and the startups are getting listed. That's how the market cap is expanding. So given though it is 5 trillion, it is not, what we call it is not expensive. It is not unreasonable. For Indian context, it looks very, very reasonable because we have large, unlisted enterprises, either in the public sector or private sector. Yeah. I mean, this is the talent landscape. The 24% of, India is under 20 to 34 age group, over 50 to 60% is productive age group. I mean, that is making very, very exciting. 34% students are under STEM, 48% employability rate in A and ML. So this is important slide, right? So if you look at this right side slide, the GCCs, what kind of sector they are coming in, not only kind of a data entry and low-end job and web development, we have moved to data science, AI and machine learning, application development, several things, cloud development. So several, high-end technology talent is available. Those functions are getting moved. I mean, in terms of talent, we can speak for hours together in terms of availability and quality. If you look at percentage of employability among youth, I mean, in the information technology, it is 68, 70%. It goes on civil engineering up to 54%. I mean, as in India, I think there is also a lot of work needs to be done in terms of making all our undergrads and engineering students, everybody, how do we make more employable? Obviously, there is a scope to improve, but otherwise also there's a lot of talent which is available. I mean, if you look at AI professional, 416,000 AI professionals currently we have. Overall employability is around 52%. Median age of Indian population is 28. I mean, this is what we are banking in the productive age, and definitely we can achieve the Vikasit Bharat, the mission we have. This is a very, very favorite sector to all of us, particularly people from Hyderabad, because this sector has given huge opportunity to several, I mean, India as a whole, but particularly to places like Hyderabad, Bangalore, Pune, Gurgaon, right? So 38% share in total exports, from services export come from IT sector. 7.5% of IT industries contribution to Indian GDP. IT alone in 7.5% contribution in the GDP. 57% share in global outsourcing comes to India. That is how we rank, IT sector. It continues to grow hugely. I mean, these are all several GCCs, global capability centers. I mean, we don't know what is the definition. We talk about, currently we have around 1,500, 1,600 GCC. I think one way to define, I think people who have, I have not found any definition, but looks like maybe a large corporation who have maybe 500 people, 1,000 people, is the threshold I think they have looked at. That's where this number is coming to 1,600. But otherwise, there are several emerging companies, growing companies who have the presence here, capability centers. It could, maybe few thousand, maybe 20,000, 30,000. I'm trying to get that number, but currently I don't have. But I definitely assume there are several, companies like how Nick is running are operating out of India and taking advantage. If you look at the kind of companies who are setting up these capability centers, largely we have around 24% in Q1 24 comes from the PFSA segment. Manufacturing also very. This is the new trend which is happening. Traditionally, only the technology companies have a capability centers, but today the manufacturer is having a capability center. Retailers are having a capability center for various functions. So that's a very interesting, insight here. Yeah. So I will pause here, and we will look at what more can be done, and I wanted to spend some time with Nick, getting his insights, and then maybe we will have a Q&A, and then maybe we will summarize at the end. Let me just stop this. Yeah. Thank you, Nick, for joining this panel discussion. Murali is not able to join due to some emergency at the last minute, but that also gives us a lot of time to discover your story and take benefit out of it.
Thank you for putting this together, Raghu. Good evening, everyone. Good morning, everyone that's in the US. Good evening, everyone that's in India. My name is Nick Genty. I am founder and CEO of AGEYE Technologies. We are growth stage ag tech based in North Carolina, which is East Coast United States. And we have a wholly owned subsidiary in Bangalore, India. Raghu and I have known each other for quite a while. And he's been instrumental in our growth in India, really ushering in the ability to have such a strong foundation there. We first got experience working with India. We opened up our first entity 2010. This was a prior company. We had set up a company in India, and it was painful. It was very difficult to understand the hurdles that you had to navigate as a US-based company trying to establish a presence. And so fast forward to 4 or 5 years ago when we were going down that same pathway to establish yet another entity, we knew there needed to be a better way because it was very, very difficult. And that was when we were fortunate enough to cross paths with Raghu and SimplyBiz to help us on that journey. And I'm happy to share a lot of what we've seen, a lot of what we've learned, and what we're seeing on the US side as well.
Yeah, Nick, what I think is maybe I have few questions, I would like to pose it to you. You can elaborate, and then we will, see some of the questions from the participants here. For the benefit of everybody, can you share what AGEYE does? AGEYE Technology does exactly, what are you trying to do? And between your operations, what do you do in the US? What do you do in India? Can you elaborate on that? How much team you have?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great intro there. So AGEYE focuses on creating autonomous indoor farms. And so these are vertical in nature. They're in typically warehouses, anywhere from 4 levels of grow space all the way up to 20 levels of grow space. So, again, thinking heights of upwards of 8 to 10 meters tall. Everything is autonomous, so we develop our own robotics in-house. We develop our own AI and ML in-house. And we have commercial farms in China, in Europe, and then North America as well. The team itself is just over 30 people, 30 people, and around half of those are based in India. Coming out of COVID, one of the nice things out of COVID was people got very, very comfortable with remote work and being able to facilitate on, tools like Slack and Zoom and Microsoft Teams. And so for us, we've never seen it as a separate team. It's a very cohesive team. For us, it's as if we're just sitting in one room over, right? And so I think the team makeup is primarily engineering, right? Going back to Raghu's earlier point about IT focused. We definitely leverage data science, data engineers, software engineers within that office. But we also see emerging areas within sales and marketing, right? One of the areas that we've continued to be very, very bullish on is looking at the proximity of where India is located within the world, right? So being so close to other Southeast Asia nations, being so close to the Middle East countries that are experiencing very rapid growth as well. We see India as a really strong launching point, if you will, to get into some of these other countries. And so while we have a heavy engineering staff right now, we are actively expanding that into the sales and marketing avenue as well.
Very nice, very nice. So I see one, you have an engineering team, then you are building on the sales team. Do you see any other functional area you think you could add to your team in India?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, customer service, customer support, that's a natural fit, right? So that's an extension of the engineering team as a whole, but being able to offer that concierge level service, right? India is a very, very good spot to have that. So, for us, it's engineering, IT services, customer support, building out sales and marketing, and then obviously we have an operations division there as well.
How do you, look at the quality of the, talent which is available? What's your view on the talent quality which you have? Availability as well as, culture wise, how easily they are able to mingle with, US teams and deliver.
Yeah. One of the things that we continue to see over and over is the high caliber of talent that's available, right? For us, typically a job description is going to require some type of master's degree within the engineering field, but it's not mandatory. Right? We've had engineers come in without it. But I would say that 95% of the employees that we've had engaged over the last 4 or 5 years, all of them, without a doubt, would be equal, if not better, to ones that we would hire here locally in the United States or ones that we've worked with in Europe, right? And so the level of talent, the level of professionalism, it's continuing to grow. I mean, we continue to be amazed that that there's such a wealth of talent there. And I think part of it is because it's such a competitive environment, right? I think that the individuals that we see, there is a lot of ML jobs, there is a lot of software jobs, but the key one, some of the venture-backed companies, right, venture-backed emerging companies, and or the large corporations like a Bosch, right, like some of these other large ones, they're not as easy to get into, right? To get one of those jobs is a little bit more difficult. So I think that we've continued to see an increase in motivation for individuals to really go the extra effort to prove themselves and seek out that job opportunity.
I'm extremely happy, Nick, to note that 95% of talent is extremely good. I mean, that's a fantastic, appreciation you have for the talent, right? Yeah.
And the nice thing about it is it's very easy to measure, right? That's not a vanity metric. That's not a my opinion metric, right? When for us, we are a agile software shop, right? And so we have clear deliverables and deadlines. And so for us, it's very easy to determine if a team or an individual on a team is not performing. That flushes itself out very quickly, right? And so time and time again, it proves that it's very high quality there, and we don't face those delays.
Yeah. Then I also know that you are venture funded, right? I mean, you are venture funded in the US. And how does the investor look at your India center? How strategically important for your investors?
Sure. I think that there's been a huge mind shift in perspective on leveraging India as a resource. When we first started, we opened the India office within 2 years of forming the company in the US. So it's very early on, we established the company, and there was questions at that point on why are we doing this now? Why are we not waiting for a little while to then establish it? And we were very, very clear with our investors then and new investors that this was critical to our success. And so fast forward to where we are now, as a background, we have investors in Singapore, we have investors in Netherlands, and we have investors here in the United States, all institutional backed capital. All of them, 100% of them, are beyond impressed with the level of output and capabilities that we're able to get with such a low budget within the setup that we have. And so for a investor that's putting in significant capital to some of these high growth companies like ours, they want to understand, how do you extend the runway? How do you reduce the burn rate, right? And it's a really competing conversation. How do you drive product? How do you continue to evolve and iterate on your product, especially AI? AI is I mean, as we've all seen, right? The level of iterations that AI is going through, it's just phenomenal. And how do you keep up with that while also being very conscious of how much you're spending and what your burn rate is, right? And so now what in the beginning was, why are we having an India presence, is now, can you talk to our other portfolio companies about helping them establish a presence, right? And to be able to have such a transformational shift in just a matter of 4.5 years, right, from our investors. I mean, we've never seen anything like that, where they were very skeptical to now it's, how can we get others in?
Fantastic. In your business, you use AI, Nick? I mean, in your development and all that, how important AI is for your business? I mean, your product development.
It's the foundation, right? I mean, for us, all of the capabilities, all of the issued IP that we have, it's all focused around leveraging various types of AI, right? And not only does it iterate fast, but it's also very expensive, right? It's expensive to develop this technology.
I mean, I know you've been associated with India for, I think, more than 10 years. I mean, even in your earlier venture, I think you had some setup in India. What do you see over these 10, 12 years? What has changed? And do you face any cultural challenges? What are the takeaways? What has been the journey?
Yeah, so early on, the first entity that we established it just outside Chennai. And we discovered that probably wasn't the best location for a IT focused firm, right? And so as we shifted and migrated to Bangalore, we were able to have access to much better talent. But one of the things that we've done is we always have quarterly meetings where we get together in person, right? The US team quarterly goes to meet with the India team, and there's a lot of team building exercises. And so the team members on the India side and the team members on the US side, I mean, it's the relationships. It's not just business. They're talking about personal activities. They're talking about things that it's a very friendly, very fun relationship. And so from a culture point of view, it couldn't be better. We were worried about time change, right? Obviously, there is a time change and that impacts business. We see that as an advantage, right? So in the morning, the US team comes in, typically 7 a.m., and there's a 3 to 4 hour overlap, right? And then the US team will continue to work and provide updates in Slack or via email as the India team comes in the next day. And then that just continues to evolve. And so for us, it's 24 hours of productivity, right? I mean, what business couldn't love that?
I mean, this is the beauty, having presence in India, right? Your business is working 24/7 instead of 8 hours, 10 hours, 3 shifts is happening and without much of an, additional effort or a headache. I mean, I think that's another, very, very, positive way of looking at things.
I think I think, Raghu, it's understated the value of that, right? We'll engage with conversations with the customer who may have some last minute change or emergency that needs help fixing, and they may get in touch with us at 4 p.m. on a weekday, right? We're able to return and deliver results by 8 a.m. the next morning, and how did you do that, right? How is that possible?
How do you look at what's your assessment about ease of doing business in India? How easy for you to do business? Again, I just want given you are there for 10 years in India, I mean, obviously your experience counts a lot.
Yeah. I think that
do you see any change which has happened maybe 10 years back versus maybe last 5 years, last few years?
Yeah, so a couple things. Early on, we approached the office the same as we would a US based office, where there was not a lot of oversight. There was not a lot of micromanagement. And again, in the 2010, 2012 timeframe, that was very difficult, right? And so there was some lost productivity there. At the same time, I think that we were very unclear about what the regulatory market was, what government filings were needed, when and where and how, right? And so from a US point of view, there was not any resources available readily to be able to find that information, right? It was almost this happened, this filing needed to happen, now you've got to go and do it now, as opposed to having it presented for us, and we start a US company, and we've started many US companies, this is everything that you need to file, dates, things like that. It seems very novel now, but it was very new then, right? And so ease of business has gotten extremely, extremely simpler now, just because we have visibility into that. And I think at the same time, we've been able to find key individuals that really take the leadership right seriously, and they push that team. As it's not a back office support team, it's we're on the front lines building this product, building this company together, right? And that is a little bit of a nuance, but it's important to note, because I think having that ownership mentality from your leadership team, whether it's here in the US or a leadership team in India, I think it's critical to having a successful venture there. And so that took us a while to establish.
But do you have any challenge currently? I mean, obviously, as a founder entrepreneur, you have several areas to work on. But from an India center perspective, I mean, do you have something? If that is fixed, maybe you are a lot more happier person.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, the inherent challenges that we continue to face are There continues to be high duties with importing goods, right? So, for us, scaling out the offices with headcount, we have access to technology here that we'd like to share there, and it's not very feasible, right? We're not in a CZ zone. And then secondly, it's as we pull in hardware for our robotics, it's same, right? It's difficult to get through that customs process. That is a little bit of a hurdle. I think that the other hurdle is, and it's getting better, but just the ability to transfer money quickly, right? And so obviously we plan our fiscal budget 6 months in advance, and we'll allocate funds, but things always come up, right? There's always times that we'll have to transfer money for small things that come up or big things that come up that we're not forecast or allocated for. And, it still takes 24 to 36 hours, right? And it would be nice if it would be able to be a little bit quicker, but, outside those limitations, things are getting very easy. I think that the other piece, and it's not a challenge, it's just when we add new job descriptions, when we post those just, we're overwhelmed with the amount of talent, right? And as a company, I mean, we have our own HR team that screens these resumes and does the shortlisting of the interviews. But it's just that there's so much talent, it's hard to filter through that, and again, it's a positive and a challenge, I think, there.
Yeah. I mean, for each job, the amount of, CVs you are getting is, humongous. That's what you're saying. Yeah.
Incredible. And on paper, all qualified, right? And so it's tough to filter through those.
Right. But do you see, in terms of, the bureaucracy, government intervention in your business, is there a headache there?
Not at all. I think that, that has been significantly reduced, I'd say, over the last 6 years, right? 5 to 6 years, where there's the trade agreements that are in place, the willingness of countries to work together, right? I mean, both administrations, whether it's the US or the India administrations, actively want to make this partnership work, and they want to see the growth continue.
Again, extremely happy to note that, Nick, I mean, things have changed, things are changing, and government is making it, there's a lot of conscious effort to make it a lot more easier for the businesses and founders, and government is extensively investing on the technology to make government to businesses, government to citizens make a lot more easier. And I keep saying, we are kind of a little bit of a transitionary phase, and then there are some hiccups, but maybe next couple of years we should see a lot more better, managed. The Indian government wanted to say government should not be in the business. I think that's the objective. I think a lot of work has been done. As you said, you're also experiencing that there's a lot of ease of doing business in India.
And I think that it's also worth noting that it's not just the IT technology infrastructure, but it's the infrastructure as a whole, right? What the government is doing with the new airports, right? They're building new roads, they're building new trains, new airports that allow this trade to happen, right? The easier it is to physically get in and out of India, the e-visa program, right? Visa on arrival, things like that, right? It's just, those are things that are helping drive it as well.
Got it. Yeah. What is the suggestion you have, with the several other, emerging companies, right? I mean, I spoke about, GCC, how do we define and all that, but several emerging businesses like yours, funded ventures, for them to come to India, what suggestion you have, what prescription you have for them to come and succeed?
Yeah. Well, I think it's twofold, right? I think that if I'm talking to a US-based company that is looking to establish an offshore or remote team somewhere, right? Typically, they're looking at Eastern Europe, right? Romania area. They're looking at India, and they're looking at South America. Those are the 3 areas that continue to get brought up for conversation. And, the conversations that I have with those here is that you may be able to find IT talent in Eastern Europe, but that's it, right? It's a very difficult location to get in and out of. It's a very hostile area to get in and out of, right? The IT talent, that is one spoke in a much larger wheel of what's needed to actually be successful, right? South America is the same way. You may find talent in South America, but that's it. That's just one piece of it. And so with India, again, it's the government support, it's the infrastructure, it's the availability of resources. I mean, it's the location to other strong economies. I mean, it's just the list goes on and why India continues to be the benefit, right? So that's what I share here. I think in order to help attract companies, it's collectively doing a better job packaging this, right? And I think that the chambers, all of the chambers throughout India that we've worked with at least, are really focused on that, making easy information accessible on this is how you could get established. These are partners that we could put you in touch with that actually can handle the entire process like a SimplyBiz, right? I think that if more people knew that services like that existed, that it would be a much higher number of companies doing this. There's a little bit of a fear on, well, I don't know how to get started.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you've been a great, advocate of, promoting India. I mean, having experienced, a lot of benefits for you. Nick, in case if you are to start again, AGEYE in India, do you do anything different for you to succeed faster, get the outcomes better?
I think that this is an active conversation. That question that you just asked, we probably have that discussion every 6 months, right? What could we have done differently? What would we do differently, just in a post-mortem point of view? And we continue to say we wouldn't do a thing different, right? We are very happy that we selected Bangalore, right, in Karnataka. That we wouldn't change that. It's a fit for us. We've looked at expanding into some of the larger areas like Hyderabad and Delhi and others, but for right now, we like where we are, and the team that we built, I think that it's been fantastic. So, if anything, it's to grow quicker, right? I think that we were coming out of the pandemic, everybody was just inherently a little cautious, right? And that caused the growth in India's team, to be a little bit slow. But I think that, if we had to do it again, we wouldn't hold back.
I mean, before we take, questions from the participants, what do you think of, people like, our organization, SimplyBiz, has been able to do it for you, make your journey better in India?
Yeah, I think that it's critical, right? And so to be clear on how this started is, we obviously, as a U.S. company that has a wholly owned subsidiary, there's a requirement to have a resident director, right? And that was our initial search, is to find a firm that could help with that. And we were shortlisted a few and ended up going with your firm, Raghu. And it was out of that we were able to discover, well, that's only one piece of it, right? And again, I know some of this sounds naive, but this is the thought process of some of these U.S. companies, is that we don't know what we don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. And so with that, it was able to a friendly, trustworthy hand of, we want to help you on the resident director, but also these are the areas that we want to go ahead and give you advice on. We're not, and there was no pressure, right? It was from a regulatory, from a finance, from a tax point of view, all of these areas, right? And then being able to pick and choose which areas we wanted to engage. Obviously, we engaged in all of them, but having a single shop that knew us, we knew them, and could handle all of the compliance related items, I think that, I mean, there's a high likelihood we would have shut the office down if we weren't able to do that, right? Just because the management of that is a headache, right? It's not something that we'd want to do. And so I feel pretty confident in that your firm and the people that we deal with on a day-to-day are a huge part in why we're still there and why we're actively growing that office.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nick, for that appreciation. And we are a team of 30 people, and very, very committed to see that our clients succeed. When they succeed, we succeed. I mean, that's the mission with which we are working. I think maybe we will pause here, Nick, and then take a few questions, and then maybe we will continue our conversation.
Sure.
Yes, let's see. There is one question on what about talent in biotechnology sector? You want to answer, Nick?
Yeah, you know that the former company that we had before AGEYE, it was focused on med devices, right? So it was a class 2 med device company, and so biotechnology we know very well. We were able to easily source and secure talent related to FDA regulated testing, right? So the level of effort and detail needed to perform software testing, embedded development testing, and actually hardware testing that satisfies the US FDA requirements. It's tremendous paperwork, right? And so it's a very difficult position to find because it also has to be technical. And so we were able to find 10 individuals that had a biotechnology background, right? That were able to come on board. With AGEYE as a whole, the head of our AI team, his background is biotechnology as well, right? And it just happens that focused on agriculture, but it's still biotechnology. And so, you know, we see that pharmaceuticals are a huge industry in India and the talent needed for that. And I think that as you expand that out to the digital pharmaceutical side, I think that there's a wealth of talent as well.
Just to add, besides what you have said, there's a huge talent available in India, biotechnology and life sciences, places like Hyderabad, also called as, global bulk drug capital, and then entire ecosystem got built last 15, 20 years. We have several accelerators, several lab spaces, several R&D, organizations out of Hyderabad, which are producing a lot of talent. Even after the IT, I think the next sector, which is very, very promising from, places like Hyderabad is life sciences, which includes biotechnology. That was one question. And we have another question from Sunil Gulati. How has been your experience about following Indian laws and taxation rules?
And it's been tough, right? Because it's not very clear. They're not the most well published for access here in the States. And so, I mean, complete transparency, we rely on SimplyBiz 100% for that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. At least sectors like, IT, your kind of operations, the regulations are also very minimal, and government also is committed to make it, simpler, year after year. But I think maybe there's a lot more progress needs to be done.
Yeah.
There's another question on what are the most promising sectors for new businesses, and how can entrepreneurs identify and capitalize on emerging trends? You have something to add, Nick? Yeah, from your own learning and perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of conclaves and conferences going on that have this bleeding edge technology. A lot of venture capital firms will sponsor these. I encourage entrepreneurs to go to there, to show up, to have conversations, to network. I think that the ability to articulate an idea to an investor or a customer, I think that's critical to the success, right? So I think it's just be seen, be heard.
I also want to answer this question in two ways. One is the hard infrastructure, physical side of the business, and then the the technology side of business are a new economy. In terms of IT and particularly the IT based several startups, there is a huge opportunity to work on. Given the India size of the population and growing and all that, there are a lot of businesses can be built on IT infrastructure. Then even in the world economy, hard infrastructure, entire infrastructure, either ports, railways, aviation is growing. There are several business opportunities exist. Just to point out, the solar alone, the government push on the solar alone, I think it itself is going to be maybe $1 trillion, economy it can add to, maybe next few years. The EV adoption, that's the second very, very promising sector. The third is around the clean tech, right? I mean, the green energy, ESG, clean tech. I think these are the few very, very promising opportunities. Consumption story, there are white spaces. I think these are the few areas I think one can look at it.
Yeah, agreed.
There is one question from Atul Kulkshetra. Nick, you probably knew about India and could move quickly to take advantage. How aware is US SMB segment about India and its talent pool? what is the best way for an Indian company to reach out to such SMB companies and collaborate with them?
Yeah, I think that the challenge is there's just so much outreach, right? There's so much outreach from India companies to US-based companies that you've got to find a way to stand out from the noise. That's the biggest thing, right? Is that how are you different than the other 10 companies that I got an email about today, right? And I would encourage that there's got to be some personalization, right? If there's a sector, if there's a company, if there's a subset of a sector that you're interested in working with, do your research on it and provide a compelling reason to engage. There's absolute willing and ready engagements here. It's just got to make sense. And I think that the more you could handhold to convince them of that why you're different, I think it's an easy contract.
Yeah, there's a follow-up question by same gentleman. Which are the SMB chambers in US who can help? Anything
Yeah,
you have?
and I think that's where we could do better, right? You know, there's not much, right? You know, for the chambers that are predominant, it's focused on bringing domestic US companies into other states, if you will. But the trans international chambers, they don't have as strong of a presence in the large cities, right? New York, Miami, Atlanta, LA, Chicago. They don't have a strong presence. And so I think that's an area we can improve.
The other question from employee point of view, what are the benefits for employees in terms of earning?
Yeah, so I mean, for us, we do an ESOP, right? Employee stock options, and that was a new concept to majority of our team that that they could have ownership in the company, and the better the company does, right? So profit sharing, employee stock options, that the better the company does, if there's an acquisition or an exit, that you individually will be financially benefited, right? I think that's a huge piece. And then the second thing is there's the culture that comes with US companies that's a little bit more laid back than some of the India companies, that I think a lot of the at least for our employees and other employees that we've dealt with, that they like that, right? They like that flexible work timings, they like the flexibility with working remote or in office, and we inherently trust our employees and empower them to get the job done, however, wherever.
Got it. Yeah. The usual challenge we hear is from the companies filing in SEC has to adhere to FCPA compliance. How this can be addressed, in the Indian context?
It's it's a regulatory need that it's painful, but I think that unfortunately there's not many ways around it, right? I mean, what the SEC filings are, again, they're based on size, and so as you get larger, you're going to be more complex. But I think for VC or investor-backed emerging growth companies, it would be limited filings, and I think that it wouldn't be as bad.
And I can just add on this. Obviously things are changing in India. A lot of simplification. Tax laws. Faceless assessment. A lot of them are making life easier, and compliance becomes a lot easier. You don't need to encounter situations like this. That's one thing which has happened. I mean, again, maybe in some other sectors, it may be a little difficult, but particularly the technology sector don't need to interact more with the regulators. The regulatory intervention is very, very minimal. Therefore, I don't think this is a big challenge for particularly tech capability centers.
Sure.
Yeah. 1 second. Okay. Yeah, there's one more question. How can entrepreneurs build a strong local team and manage talent effectively in the Indian business environment? I just want to modify a little bit, Nick. Obviously remote working is a norm, work from home is a norm, hybrid is a norm. But how do you ensure that the productivity, morale, and enthusiasm continues to be high? what you do, how do you keep this going?
Yeah, it's tough, right? But it's the company actively taking involvement, right? So doing team building, doing external activities, sponsoring cricket game. We've got cricket teams, and we'll do team building exercises. But I think that you need to empower the employees themselves, right? I think that if the employee thinks that they're being micromanaged or that they've got to prove themselves, then it's not going to work out. And so finding the right people, empowering those individuals, and rewarding when things get done, and benefit, it goes a long way.
I think we are, almost, we have done with all the questions, Nick, and maybe I'll take a couple of minutes on the closing remarks, and then maybe we can wind up this webinar. Yeah. Yeah. I think this question, we have another question, maybe which you may like it. What is your opinion on agriculture sector of India and its future through the globe? I mean, I know you don't serve Indian market. When will you serve Indian market? How do you look at Indian agriculture, given you are in this business?
Because we're focused on indoor, right? There's a requirement of water, electricity, stable infrastructure, right? And typically that works better in areas with not as much land, right? So you would not think initially that India would be a good fit. However, we've got 3 active projects currently out for bid right now throughout India for high-tech vertical farms. And so I think that India as a whole, all of the things that make it great, the low age, right, of the population in the mid-20s, being able to have such a large population, that group is highly focused on understanding what they're eating, where their food comes from, and much more conscious about that. And so we see a shift, right? We're seeing a significant shift in regenerative agriculture, right? Whether it's finding better ways to grow outdoors or in greenhouses, or even adopting new processes like indoor, like us. We didn't think India would be necessarily a market, but it's turned out it could be a huge market for us. So, we're extremely excited with the ag sector in India.
Okay, thank you. The another question, Nick, generally a lot of companies, founders from overseas, sometimes have an apprehension about the confidentiality, protection, protection of your IP, protection of people, protection of your technology. I mean, do you see any challenge there? What's your experience?
Not necessarily. I think that regardless the company, even if it's, if it's a US company and a Europe company, right, that they're going to have some of those apprehensions, right? But at the end of the day, it is a true global economy, right? So you're dealing with China, you're dealing with India, you're dealing with the US, you're dealing with the Middle East. And I think that if companies that get too caught up on some of the potential downfalls, right, on that, they limit themselves. At the end of the day, the majority of businesses want to do well and they want to collaborate in partnership, right? And so it's a risk that comes with running the company.
I mean, I think, it is indispensable. You have to live with it, manage it. I don't think, you can continue to take that excuse. I don't think it'll work for
I think it's an excuse, right? I think it's a limiting excuse.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I mean, when the value is so compelling, I think all this will be behind. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, we call it as a micro GCCs. Several companies already having capability centers in India, and they are thriving and helping their parents overseas. I mean, these are the few companies we have helped in setting up their capability centers in India in various ways. And we have set up and we continue to engage with them very, very actively. That gives us a lot of satisfaction. Yeah. I mean, very, very, brief about what we do at SimplyBiz. We broadly, operate in 3 verticals. One, we call it as, GCCs for SMBs or micro GCCs in India. Anybody in the overseas territory, maybe US or maybe any other country, who want to have a capability center here. We help them in end-to-end. We are also expanding, not only, managing the entity setup and, compliance, but, even in the hiring talent and bringing some of the software, things, including the infrastructure, making, these SMBs, growing companies, make their life very, very easy. They don't need to be bogged down with, several things. That is the headache. We want to take out and make this experience, very, 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 very healthy and, very sustainable, and adding, it is helping success for their organization. So this is one piece, we are doing it. We want to do it in more, better scale and better experience. That's on our mission. Then we also do, extensive work for the, Indian companies in the transaction advisory and support, either the M&A or a fundraising or a commercial contract. That's another vertical. Then we extensively work on the corporate compliance and corporate governance. That's how we operate. We are a 30 people team, with 300 years of experience, and work with more than 150 companies. And I mean, that's all I wanted to say about SimplyBiz. But I think this discussion has been very, very useful, Nick. We have been talking, in every board meeting and many ways. But today it gave a very, very holistic picture, covering the entire gamut. Shika, you wanted to say something?
Yes, sir. We are really thankful to you and to Mr. Nick for such a very interesting and fabulous panel discussion. I think many of our members got a lot of clues and a lot of interesting information about how the US companies are expanding here, and how the firms or the professionals here in India can help them in many other ways by taking some of their things and helping them in some of the compliances and everything. So we are really thankful to you and to Nick. And I think we'll be sharing the recording with our members, and this will be beneficial. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nick, once again for joining and sparing your time, and for a very active and a very candid responses you have shared. I think that will go a long way. Thank you, IACC, for this opportunity, and several friends who have joined in this webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.